What's up everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about the 60 2.8D macro lens, and I'm going to tell you why so many photographers recommended this lens. At first I didn't really understand why I needed a 60 2.8D because so many photographers were recommending it. I had the 50 1.8 and that was already good for portraits, close-ups, but that 50 1.8 wasn't a macro lens. But yeah, I was actually pretty shocked when I first tested out this lens at my camera shop. I saw it used, went to go test it out, they gave me a quarter and I took a picture of that quarter and we're just sold on it. Quick specs on it, it does have a 62mm filter thread. Maximum aperture is f2.8. The minimum aperture is f32, but you can go all the way down to f51 depending on how close you are to your subject. But just a heads up, if you're at that aperture range like f32 or f51, just make sure you have a lot of light source because it's going to make your images basically black. So let's talk about how it feels in the hands. The first time I felt this in my hands, I was actually shocked at how small it was. As you can see here, compared to how it looks like side by side against the 18-55 and my 51.8G and the 85 1.8G. But when I held it in my hands, it felt sturdy. It's a metal body. It does feel very strong in my hands. And when I use it with my Nikon D700 or the D7000 or even just my Nikon D300S, it feels really well balanced. And if you are using a DSLR that does have the autofocus screw, just make sure you have it on this f32 setting and make sure you put it on orange, and then when you mount it, it will autofocus. This lens won't autofocus on the Nikon D3000s, the D5000 series cameras, just those cameras that basically any of the Nikon DSLRs that don't have the autofocus screw. And another thing I like about this lens is also that it is a macro lens. You can capture some pretty amazing images with it and just go ahead and have fun with it. And this is one lens I would highly recommend for photographers that are looking for a lens that can take really high quality, crispy and clear product images. This is definitely the lens to go with if you're photographing jewelry, insects, or anything small that you really do need this macro lens with. So I would highly recommend this lens, especially if you're on a budget. Another great thing I like about this lens is that it's actually a pretty good portrait lens. I took this lens to a local photography collab, and when I was using it, I was actually surprised of how sharp and contrasty the images came out from this lens. And at first I didn't really understand why it was used as a portrait lens, but after using it, it was pretty surprising. It was really good. But I mean, if you already have the 50, I would just stick with the 50. But if you do need a portrait lens and a macro photography lens, this is the lens to go with. I can also see reasons why you would want this lens for both portraits and macro, because for example, if you're photographing a model and they have earrings or jewelry, this is both ways. You can use it for both portraits and macro. And just talking about image quality, this lens is very sharp, even at f2.8. As you can see with these examples here, I had no issues shooting macro or portrait shots. One of the only downsides is that it doesn't have VR, vibration reduction, but most of the time if you're doing macro shot, you probably won't need vibration reduction just because you're going to be close enough to the subject and you're most likely going to be using a flash or a light source. And as I said before, it's not really a con. You just won't be able to use this lens with the Nikon D3000 series or the Nikon D5000 series. Well, you can use it, you just won't be able to use autofocus. So yeah, overall, I would highly recommend this lens. It's definitely a lens that so many photographers suggest, and now I am suggesting it to you just because of how good it is as a portraits lens and as a macro photography lens. I know Nikon did make a newer updated 1.8G model, but that one is about double or triple the price of this. So if you're definitely on a budget, this one would definitely do. And yeah, I would highly recommend it, especially after using it for a few weeks. I'm just sold on using it. I've been using on my Nikon D700, my Nikon D3, basically all my cameras that has the autofocus screw. I have been using this lens a lot more compared to my 50 1.8G lens. I have done portraits with other Nikon DSLRs and lenses in my channel, so if you're interested in watching those videos, check out my other videos in my channel. If you have had this lens, please comment below, let others know what you think about it. And if you're thinking about getting this lens, please comment below and I'll try my best to answer those questions. And just want to say thanks for watching everyone, and if you do like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.